this decision is Wednesday, theoretically.
Yeah, so I believe that the chi is in charge. So
Well,
I've got to believe the chi is in charge,
I think the Committee of 300 is in charge.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, we've tipped. We've tipped.
The evil empire.
We've tipped. So Mike, before people come on, what do you do with the people who I don't know how to say it nicely here. Oh, right. People on now here.
I think we're about to start the presentation. We're not supposed to chat while it's.
I've got a question for you though about that. What do you do with the people who are caught and okay. Hello, Llama.
Hey Nadia, how are you?
Grateful to be here.
I am thrilled to be here. You guys are my favorite.
Amazing what you've done, by the way. Just like, wow. Oh, wait, is that Ken there? Wait, who is that?
Ken Cohen? No, we're just Jewish. We're both Jewish. That's what we have in common.
Is he changing his name to Gary Kleiman?
My maiden name was Chu, so I'm Jewish. Okay, so we can. So we're family. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, aloha.
Hey, aloha.
Sandra.
Friend
Wow.
Sandra. Yes. So, hi, everybody. Yes.
Hello.
And
You can feel the chi in this circle. It's really wow.
Enorm. Yeah.
I get rid of these notes.
And looks like Michael is here.
Yes, hello.
How are
I'm
you?
very happy to be here.
Likewise. Great. John's here. Hi, John.
Good to see you. How are you doing, Lama?
Doing great.
Good to see you.
John.
Hey, Lama, you want to set me up as a co-host and I can be your front door for you?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Marcia.
Not a problem.
All right. You are co-host. All right. Hopefully you'll be able to keep them at bay. The ones that are trying to crash Zoom meetings.
But we're just going to bring them in and turn them into Zoom creatures, chi creatures.
The digital background of yours is very trippy. But when you make any gestures with your fingers, it makes it very trippy. It's like, wow. Very
Found by accident, kept on purpose.
Let's see. Wow, what a trip. Okay. So, I don't know if Dr. Chow is going to join us today. Maybe not. But hopefully there will be also more people joining us. The previous few days we had quite a few more. We'll see how many will join us today. Sometimes people don't know how much they miss when they have the VIP tickets and they don't participate in this kind of panel discussions. But we're going to record it also. We'll make it available for public viewing later. And that also means we want to behave today. So nobody's going to take the clothes off or do anything else that you wish you wouldn't do.
How do you know?
Oh.
We're Hawaii.
I'm just hallucinating. I'm just hoping that
It's about being authentic and naked here.
Just try not to be banned from YouTube. How's that?
Well, whatever works for you.
Don't tempt us, huh, Nadia? I just watched you. It was so wonderful. Thank you.
All right. So we are going to start rolling. This is Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to another panel discussion dedicated to using natural healing methods to address the COVID-19 pandemic and heal whatever ails us. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I appreciate our esteemed presenters for being here with us. Dr. Wei-Cheng Lee, Dr. Nadia Hole, Dr. Sandra Michael, Gary Kleiman, Michael Mahorik, Dr. Norm Shealy, and Dr. Melinda Connor. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your presence, and I also want to welcome all our VIP guests who are joining us as well, and you are welcome to listen in. And if you have any questions, please save the questions till the Q&A session at the end, or you can post them in the chat. Just simply type them up, and if these questions are pertinent during the discussion, we'll definitely be happy to answer these questions. If you have questions for a particular presenter, you can also put the question in a private chat, so to speak, and just address that particular presenter directly. So there are lots of options. Welcome once again. And I want to get started by simply saying that we live in interesting times. During this pandemic, obviously, we are on the cutting edge and the front line of helping people heal. And more importantly, even than healing, perhaps, is prevention. So I would like to add that to the topic of our discussion and ask you, who would like to speak on the topic of prevention and healing of COVID-19 or other ailments associated with it?
I'm happy to speak on that, always.
Please do, Dr. Norm Shealy.
Well, in my opinion, all the time, not just during this time, you should keep your body healthy. And that involves a remarkable, essential number of habits. And unfortunately, there are two major studies that show only 2.7% of Americans have the 5 health habits that are essential for life. And at the top of the list that is missing is a healthy body mass index, 18 to 24. 72% of Americans are fatter than that. Number 2, 22% of adults still smoke. Number 3, the average American eats 2.2 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. The absolutely, like oxygen essential breathing, is 5. 8 or 10 is optimal. Personally, I start the day with 20, but the average American gets 2.2. They don't get any antioxidants. Next is exercise, a minimum of 30 minutes, 5 days a week. 10% of Americans get that. I get 2 hours every morning, 7 days a week. And finally, sleeping 7 or 8 hours every night. About 45% of people get enough sleep. So a huge majority of people are missing more than one of the essential health habits. Now, in addition, in today's polluted world, we need extra vitamins. At the top of the list is D3. If you weigh 140 pounds or more, your ideal is to take 50,000 units of D3 once a week. If you weigh under 140 pounds, you need to take it every 10 days, so the 1st, 10th, and 20th of every month. Next, you need vitamin C. Now, the recommended daily allowance has been increased from 60 to 100 milligrams. My recommendation is 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And if you do that, of course, even if you take 100 milligrams or more, you need, of course, the B complex. So you need 25 milligrams a day of B complex, B1, B2, B3, B6, for the brain to function. We've known this since I was a freshman in medical school. When people came in drunk, you gave them an IV of vitamin B1, 100 milligrams. But you need a B1, B2, B3, and B6. And you need a form of vitamin A. Now, there are about 20 different forms of vitamin A. I prefer astaxanthin. So 10 to 20 milligrams of astaxanthin a day. Now, if you take all of these that we've just mentioned, that protects your immune system amazingly well. if you feel a bug coming on, knocking at the door, so to speak, take 150,000 units of vitamin D3, 3 days in a row. Now, I have done that maybe once a year just to be sure, and I have not had any kind of viral disease in the last 12 years. And in the pandemic, the stupidemic, I often call it, I take an IV vitamin C about once a month just to feel good. It's safe. You could take it every day safely. It just be a little bit cumbersome. But those things protect you adequately most of the time. And I have to say, finally, you would have to shoot me with a gun to get a vaccine into me. I do not trust them. I think they've been sped into action totally prematurely.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Shealy. That is a really important statement. And also, we have probably controversial perspectives on various ideas and various points. So we may have a discussion. And I want to thank you for giving us the rundown of the vitamins that are important for the immune system, and ask if anyone else would like to share any suggestions, opinions, or perspectives on the use of perhaps not only vitamins, but also exercises or specific energy practices for both addressing the issues of immunity and perhaps dealing with the COVID-19 in particular. I can say for myself that I haven't been sick in about 25 years. And I don't take any vitamins. I don't take any pills at all of any sort. I just practice Qigong, I sleep well, and I eat natural foods. And I don't follow any particular diet. So sometimes I eat more vegetables, sometimes less vegetables, sometimes I eat meat, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I consume sugar, sometimes I don't. There is no particular rhyme or reason to it, except for energy resonance. I test whatever I consume for energy resonance, how well my body resonates with whatever I'm about to ingest. If I resonate, I'm gonna eat it. If I don't resonate, you are not gonna force me to eat it. And so that literally has been keeping me healthy for literally 25 years or more. And I'm not gonna change this approach because it seems to be working. How about you guys?
Lama Tanrapa.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll follow up with my hero, Dr. Noam Shealy. I want to say that I've been an admirer of your work, and also I know where we met in Egypt many thousands of years ago. And you as the physician, and also me as high priestess, as I saw one of your interviews on past lives. And if I may add on that in this work that I do long distance with many people, besides suggesting a holistic nutrition based on applied kinesiology, where we test people for the right amount of supplements, including D3 with K2 and vitamin C and zinc and so on, and also nitric oxide. Also, one of the things that I've been doing, which is really important, is to delve deep into with people in their emotions. And as we know, we talked about stress and depression and all this at this time when people feel really contracted, you know, very much in physically as well as emotionally, and also collectively, energetically in this pandemic. And I agree with that, absolutely. So one of the first things that I've found in this long distance work I've been doing is really to go straight to the emotional body and the astral body to really help people cope with this situation, and also to give a wider spectrum of what this time in history is, you know, this cycle of history where there have been different real pandemics and the situation of a viral, or we found out that it's actually a bacterium, perhaps the this coronavirus. And the synchronicity of this incidents at this time that links up with the Kali Yuga or links up with the prophecies of many traditional divination arts, that this is a time for a great cleansing and purification. And so to perhaps see this as a larger spectrum of our humanity, and also to take this opportunity of cocooning, which is what I call as to come out, to metamorphosize into a butterfly. And that this is a time for each one of us to actually purify and cleanse our astral body and emotional body as it links to the collective, and really allow all the corruption, the deceit, and the shadows that goes with the government, that goes with, the great medical machinery, and also with the whole vaccine issue and the issue of control, and really see it from a larger picture. So I try to do that with my clients, but not in such an in-depth way that we can discuss here. And I know that Dr. Norman Shealy has already discussed that in his interviews, as well as my dear friend, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. And we work together with the World Sovereign Health Summit in Bali, and also with ITNJ. So we're very well aware of the situation, but the everyday person doesn't really know it, and how to break to it, and how to work on a subconscious level with them, because those of us who are really astute in the energy arts, and how to relate to them in a safe way, to bring them to education, especially about vaccines, because people are really confused about it. And again, like vaccines and like food, if food like peanuts and honey is toxic to some people, vaccines are not meant for everybody, especially corona vaccine, not vaccines as a whole. And of course, we work with Del Bigtree as well, who is of the High Wire and Vaxxed movie, and who has actually given us a lot of information on this. And so, to give people a broader spectrum when we work with people. And I find that with my work in delving into the astral body is that strangely enough, a lot of past lives has been coming up, and a lot of fears that is subconscious, that leaks back to trauma in this lifetime, as well as in utero and beyond. And also what's interesting with Dr. Nadia saying the future self, and also giving people a vision, a hope for their future selves, and to give her a vision, that means making plans and making realistic plans for themselves, even creating abundance and money online, which I've done actually during this cocooning. So I just thought I would just add to it that besides all the supplements, and of course the energy products like flower essences perhaps, and crystals, and whatever gifts we have, like for example, these are nitric oxide, which is important for oxygenation of the blood. And we find that because with 5G, it also pulls out the exosomes from the cells into the blood. And COVID-19 is actually a blood condition as well. And there are clots during the autopsies of the people who supposedly have COVID-19, where there were blood clots. So we're using energy technologies, as my dear sister, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael said, that this is the age of Aquarius. And so we're moving into the age of technology. And I'm wearing one of her 5G calibrated hematite, as well as, actually this is a CBD tag, which is also frequency. And using these technologies besides our ancient practices of Qigong. So I have here negative ions clothes, the camisole, the shawl, this to protect from 5G, which is now we are linking with our immune system, besides using the breath work. And the breath work I offer is called infinity breath, which is 8 counts in and 8 counts out, and then 4 counts of 8, which we found that between 8 and 10 is where people can breathe normally. And I've just taken someone with COVID-19 who really could not breathe at 5 counts. And then in one session, we went on to 8 counts, and then helping him with all these different holistic modalities, including the emotional work. So I thank you for the segue into this. And I'm just really pleased to be with all of you here, and also so happy for the research that's being done by Dr. Melinda, and just really looking forward from Asia. I'm in Malaysia at the moment to link up with everybody in more research with all of you. So I think I would wind up here and then perhaps converse later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wei Shealy. It's wonderful to see you because it's the middle of the night for you, or early morning. What is it, 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, you know, you go glow with the flow, I say. You know, that's my motto. Just and my experience as a flight attendant really helped. So, and also having suicide calls in the middle of the night this is all part of it. But this is definitely much more pleasurable, and converging with everybody, with John and Sandra and everybody else, with you. And thank you, Lama, for putting this together. I know you have to go through a lot of tech issues and so on. And of course, to beloved Effie, my eldest sister. So I just want to say, put in a life thank you in.
Well, this is mostly thanks to Dr. Effie Chow. She is the spearheading brain power behind all this activity that we're doing. And she is online right now joining us.
Wonderful.
So would you tell us a little bit about what you would like to share about the COVID-19 natural means to heal it, Dr. Chow?
Yes, thank you very much, Lama. And Wei Shealy, we're happy to help you come here anytime. And you look so beautiful in the middle of the night. Well, what would you look like in the middle of the day?
Thank you. That's so sweet. It's so beautiful to me.
So all of us practicing holistic health or integrative health and or natural medicine, natural healing, our mindset is in the same pathway, but not a defined one path. It is pathway that is on multiple directions. And we need to respect each other. I think that's really an important thing, that we are not in competition with each other and that we are in friendly competition. There's a big difference. Whereas if we have a bit of competition, we strive to improve ourselves. If we have no competition, then we take things for granted. And so therefore, progress is not there. So we have a great deal of, I hate to say the word work, I call it play, because I play all my life. I have never worked. I have played with everything. And so there's a lot of play that we have to do to bring complementary, alternative, and natural medicine, natural healing into first class. We are now third rate. We're not thought of right in a very beginning instance. And there's still a lot of skepticism, even though there's been proof of so much validity to the natural healing versus they're able to work with cancer, whereas Western medicine has failed with cancer and with very other serious diseases like Parkinson's, neurological, and gut problems, and you name it. And the natural healing is far above what Western medicine can do at this point. It's not just us saying it, but it is over CNN and other videos that have been produced by medical doctors themselves and the World Health Organization, that strata of effectiveness that American Western medicine has fallen down. It's the highest cost, but the effect has fallen down, way down to about 42 in rank, whereas it used to be ranking number 1 and 2. That is not good. How many of you feel it's not good? No? So I know you can put your hands up, you can do anything, etc. And Lama, if you wouldn't mind putting the whole panel on, I love Wai Ching, but we need to put all the other panels on. Can you make it so that it's a gallery?
Yeah, you just click on your own computer, the gallery view instead of speaker view.
Oh, really? You don't control it?
And there's a little square
I don't see it.
thing on top right corner to the right of the 4 participants that you currently see. There is a blue button with an arrow, and directly to the right of it, to the right and slightly above it, there is a little square. Next to another button that allows you to see the whole full screen, there is a square where you can click. It looks like
just have to leave it as such. All right. So now your full view, and so, all right. So everyone here, I think, practice a different variety of natural healing, and so if we can have respect and support each other, and it comes down to my ultimate goal right now. I've been on the cusp of policy making and bringing complementary alternative medicine into the system to where it is. But we have not thought about finances. We have not dealt with finances. How many of you have your clients pay you out of pocket? Anybody? Everybody. Well, we need to have, and please don't use the word insurance, but reimbursement, a creative reimbursement system for people who want to stay well. And this is what my aim, coming back from 3 near-death experiences. God and Buddha said, you're not ready to come to us. You get back on earth and get this vision accomplished. And so that is my vision, to get a complementary natural healing wellness structure in place so that we can opt for financial reimbursement for people who want to stay well and not wait until they are diseased, and then insurance will pay for them. Did you know that insurance pays for cancer treatment as high as $121,000, not a year, 1 month? How many knew that? Anybody know that? Okay, good. Well, I didn't know. I thought 14,000 was kind of high. But then in exploring, I find 121,000. And it's known that there's not that much result with chemotherapy because it kills the individual good cells as well. So this is where I am asking you folks to be active with me and sign in with me, with us, to that we can move this forward. And until finances are available, we will continue to be a third-rate treatment and get frustrated because they can't afford to come to us as much as they should to get totally better. So there's this seesaw. They come to you, then they go back to Western medicine to get financed, and then they get worse, and then they come back to you. This is a seesaw that I would like to, with your help, prevent and rebalance our life system. So thank you. I'll make some other comments if it's necessary, but I want to pose this to our conferees that this is a very important turning point in our existence. And if during this COVID-19 crisis, the pandemic, we cannot prove our worth, then we've lost it. Under good times, they will not see what we are able to do. So it is up to every one of you to really prove what it is. When I say prove, it's like write out the details and write up the case histories and have documentation on your success. And I think we're shy on doing that. And so I encourage you all to keep good documents. And don't be afraid to say, I saw the one time and we got this results. As Gary keeps talking, I see the one time and they're better, you know. But you have to document it with validity, with testimony by the person themselves. You can't just say that yourself. I hope this sounds logical to you, and that we're embarking on a year of real action to move our profession into more than first class. Are you all with me? I hope so. Okay. And so thank you very much, every one of you. You have contributed a great deal to this conference already, and will continue to do so until we close on Wednesday. Then we have the workshops. And then through the year, I'd like you people to sign up with me who would like to be on the ground floor of working this out. And it'll be an international basis, not just a national. We have each nation that's going to have to formulate their own situation. So thank you, blessings. And again, my prescription of 8 hugs a day, 8 Effie Chow heart-to-heart hugs a day, and 3 belly aching laughs a day. So being that we can't hug each other, let's hug ourselves and say, I love me. Come on, you have to say that too. I love me.
I love me.
I love you.
I love you. And
I love you.
to everybody else. Okay. And I love you, the world and the universe. Thank you very much.
Dr. Chow, please check your
Good
chat.
morning, Marcia.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning, Dr. Chow.
Good
Would you
morning.
check your chat box? I sent you instructions on how to turn your screen into the gallery view.
Well, it usually does, but right now it didn't. Okay. So thank you very much, Marcia. Marcia's our captain of marshaling things for perfection.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marcia. Without your help, this Congress would probably have not happened. It's really important, and I want to publicly express my appreciation of your help. And
Really
we have lots of other wonderful presenters who are here today. And perhaps some of them would like to speak up and share what else they would like to share. For example, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. We would just mention you by name more than once. Would you please share with us a little bit about your work and your perspective on how to address this pandemic from your point of view?
I first want to acknowledge the greats who have spoken before me. The great vision and work, the life work of Dr. Grandmaster Effie Chow, Dame also. Your vision and your life work goes before us as a beacon. And it's magnificent, and I want to support that vision and bring it to fulfillment, because we wouldn't have our greatest visions if we weren't here to fulfill it all. And you kept coming back until you fulfill it. So let's get her done. That's what my military say, let's get her done. We do have that plan for 1,100 wellness centers for our veterans. That's still very much on the table. In fact, I have meetings in Reno this week on that, and a $75 million facility for research. So again, the documentations. So I'm doing a meeting on that this week. But I'm also working with a grand team, part military, again, former Marine, general, colonel, for the future, the next level of healthcare, which is preventative. And they're creating basically the future for Obamacare, the next level, which is preventative, and energy medicine. And this is our future that will not be stopped, because, as you know, our healthcare costs in the US are the highest of any and every other nation, in fact, double the healthcare costs. And we're 40 something as far as we have the worst health statistics of any and every other nation. So I want to thank you. I also want to thank Dr. Norm Shealy and the suggestions he gave. I would absolutely condone those. I mean, it's absolutely truth, to focus on our health. And that's what we're coming into is this time. Really, we need to focus on our own health and cocoon, so to speak, Dr. Amalia, cocoon, so to speak, so we can fly free with 2020 hindsight, 2020 in our rear view mirror. We're going to fly free, come out of our cocoons with the wings, the wind under our wings. So we fly free in this year, 2021, because there is so much ahead of us this year. So many big changes and revelation, time of revelation and apocalypse, but that means revelation. But this, I would like to add a couple things. The number one thing I think that needs focused on, and this has to do with COVID because it's the DSAT, the lack of oxygen. Number one thing is breathing. Live people breathe, dead people don't. I start everything by saying aloha, which means breathing in all the energy, the chi, the power, the light of the entire universe right into our own self, our own hearts. That's that self-love, that internal hug of loving yourself as much as God loves us, right into our hearts, and letting go. Aloha. That oneness with the breath and that love of all life, and breathing deeply and fully to allow ourselves our fullest and highest, our greatest life. No more excuses. So that oneness with the breath, of that passion, of that perfection, of that love for all life. Aloha is number one thing, and breathing more light, more love with every breath to expand all capacities for love. And that's going to reverse that DSAT that we're seeing, which was really a blood issue, not a lung issue with this COVID-19 thing. But to focus on the breathing is very, very, very important. And we're very blessed in that nobody with EE system exposures has been able to do any symptoms of COVID. So it's kind of an interesting because it oxygenates the blood and allows everything to be free flowing. So you don't have the blood coagulation, the thrombotic issues that you would be seeing, the blood clotting, that you would be seeing with the COVID stuff. And it steps up immune function. So people, need the energy to heal. And so that's what, the technology that we've developed, as you said, the chi technology, it's that light source, life force energy. And that when we reconnect with that energy, whether you're doing the qigong or using the technologies, these are ancient technologies of breath and focus, of energy. And as we expand that light, literally breathing light, so that's where the sun is also very important for our vitamin D, but also getting the sun and breathing light to every cell, every part of our cells, because then as we radiate that light, nothing that is not of that light can affect us. And we're at a higher frequency and a higher vibration where we're no longer at effect. So that's the number one thing. We want to go from fear to total freedom, that breathing light, breathing love, that total remembrance of who we are, and then sharing that light, that love with the world, because the only thing beyond love is more fully shared love. And so we want that light to radiate out, to touch the hearts of all beings, to feel more love now. And so that's the number one thing I'd want to share with everybody. So mahalo, thank you for letting me share. But there's so many great beings on this panel that also I want to hear from.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. This is a brilliant and very eloquent way to express how you look into a more natural and perhaps more spiritually oriented way of addressing the COVID-19 pandemic and perhaps many other issues in our lives. I would love to invite also other speakers and presenters speak up. Perhaps I can ask Dr. Melinda Connor to share a little bit about what's your research, what's your point of view on this whole issue of pandemic.
Well, I'm coming at it from multiple places. I was part of a multi-center, FDA-approved, registered device trial on COVID, combining a copper supplement with a photobiomodulation device. It's over in phase 2 trials in Europe right now, but it was very, very successful here in the US. And I can't speak to the devices themselves, but I can discuss a little bit about the copper supplement. And just a normal 2 milligram copper supplement does some really cool things with the COVID virus. It strips the feet off the virus. It strips the shell that surrounds the virus off the virus. And as a byproduct, it actually makes hydrogen peroxide, which burns the fool out of the virus. So it as something that's very straightforward and very simple that you can do prophylactically, that you can do as an ordinary response to take care of yourself, a good, healthy action, particularly when you combine it with the breath work that has been discussed and Norm's discussion of the various vitamin and supplements responses, paying attention to the energy that Lama was talking about of the food that you eat. It makes a huge difference because you're charging the chi all the way through the body, all the way through that central vessel. And when that chi force comes up, you're going to keep your lungs clearer. And that's the big problem with COVID, is the cytokine storm that hits as the lung tissue gets attacked. So that's piece one. And I would say you might want to consider adding a copper supplement to that process. The second piece is I've had a number of folks that I often get called on in a different stage. Norm and Sandra, some of the others of you end up working with people much sooner. I get called in at the last minute after people are in ICU. And in that situation, my team has found that a viral purge works really, really well. So you set up a distant waveform, you're grounding, you're charging, and you connect into the frequency range of the virus. And basically you're going to use an element wave, a fire wave. And basically start at the toes, run the fire wave all the way up, and run the fire wave all the way down. Viral counts at that point drop to undetectable levels within a single hour, at least in the data that we have at this point. So it's a possibility. There are also, having had to spend a bunch of time writing research reports on this, quite a number of natural medicine solutions. Norma expressed one, Sandra expressed another. I don't know you, Wei Ching, I apologize, but you have expressed another. Dame Effie was talking about another. Lama was talking about another. Beech Tree Labs has a very fine homeopathic, or it's a virtual homeopathic that works very, very well. So there are a number of options out there to the vaccine. The vaccine is a challenge. There are people where they need to follow what the physician recommends, and the physician is recommending the vaccine. The challenge is that most of the vaccines today are used with binders. And there's a binder that is commonly used that's called sequaling. And pretty much everybody is allergic to the sequaling used in the binder. Sequaling is a natural chemical. Every person here has it in their body, but they're allergic mostly to everybody else's. And if it's way different from yours, some of that anaphylactic shock reaction that we've been seeing in patients is because of that process. So that's piece one. The second one is there's no longitudinal data. We don't know if the vaccine is going to provide immunity for any substantial length of time. We haven't had a chance to check that yet. We don't know if there are going to be secondary effects that are long-term from the vaccine. We haven't had a chance to check that yet. That doesn't mean you don't follow what the physician says. If the physician says take the vaccine, they know your case, you know them, you make a joint decision, that's different. But if you as a person have made a personal choice that that is not the correct thing to do, there are other options out there. They are available. And we have, what, 10, 15, 20 practitioners here that are all sufficiently skilled to present beautiful interventions to support people who can't take those vaccines. So.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Melinda. This is a really important statement. How
I'm glad that you made
vaccines.
I'm
pleased.
taken 2 milligrams of copper a day for probably 30 years, Melinda. Thank you.
And the copper and zinc, do they have any interaction issues, or are they complementary?
Yes, I take zinc as well. 20 milligrams of zinc, 2 milligrams of copper.
I see. Very well. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Connor, for diving a little bit deeper into the subject. There is a wealth of research that has been put by numerous researchers, and there is never enough. There is always going to be more need for substantiation of some of the claims, or just simply deeper understanding of how things work. And one of the people here with us today who has deep understanding of natural things is Dr. John Milton, who's one of the originators of environmental movement in the United States and probably worldwide. John, would you unmute yourself and share a few words of wisdom with us?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today. Good to see you, Lama. I work with a group called The Way of Nature, and the emphasis we have in Qigong and spiritual cultivation is working in partnership with nature as our source of course, it gave birth to the human species, and we've co-evolved in the body of Gaia for millions of years, every cell in our body. So we have a process where we go back to nature and cultivate a very deep connection to nature, energetically and physically and spiritually. And in the context of healing, one of the things that we've discovered is that when we go into nature, and especially working with the element aspect of Qigong, with the 5-element aspect, we work directly with the different organ systems associated with the 5 elements, and we work with the beings of nature like the trees, the stones, the metal aspect, and of course all of the other, the wood aspect in case of the wood element. And we breathe in the qualities of the chi and the energetic truth in outer nature, and then we let it move into the organ system and the elemental aspects of ourselves internally. And we breathe out any of the obscurations, blockages, and pollution aspects that may have come in energetically into our elemental makeup. And then having done that, we go back and we do that again. And this time we breathe in to the same 5-element aspect internally. And we, on the out breath, feel it integrate into the elemental aspect of ourselves and support a process of regeneration for the regenerative capacity of that organ system, or all the aspects that are connected to that particular element aspect. We often work with the 8 extraordinary meridians in a similar fashion. Won't get into that here, it's a bit complex, but basically we utilize especially the breath and setting the intent. And of course, intent is different than will. In the case of intent, you place the mind in that to which you would like to connect, and generally it's something that is for the good of the whole. And then you release that intent into the vastness of the being, and you might say the mystery of all being. and then release any attachment to the result. That's how we place intent. And we use that placement of intent with each of the elemental connections. And then over time, as you move through the generation cycle with the 5-element system, you can build a purification aspect and then build a regenerative aspect that leads to a much stronger overall system of balance, harmony, and integration in the organic beingness of ourselves. If you go into nature, we also spend a lot of time finding places in nature where you can go and ideally you start with a place in nature that's already fairly integrated in a whole, where it hasn't been unduly imbalanced through our human activities. And we go there and we open our hearts. We do Tai Chi practice, and we do a series of ceremonial practices and Qigong to bond and connect to nature as part of our beingness. And through the state of interconnection with nature, we learn to support nature in bringing out its own inherent perfection. And then we connect with nature once that has been done. And we have a number of techniques to take places in nature actually that have been somewhat disturbed and actually help them recover themselves. So they come back into a much more deep and sacred wholeness, which is then the level at which we make the connection. In doing this practice, it lays a base for both medical Qigong and also spiritual Qigong in terms of providing a basis for a very powerful experience of deep integration and wholeness within ourselves. It also lifts the vibration of the whole being to a level where it's very difficult for things like COVID or other illnesses that have a biological basis to enter us. Also, keep in mind that many illnesses and diseases like COVID come from an overall imbalanced relationship between people and nature. So by doing our practices to come back into a state of harmony, respect, appreciation, and balance with nature as a human being, that lays the foundation for a much more powerful and much broader level of healing, not just for ourselves, but for our species to come back in balance with the rest of life. So it's a fairly comprehensive system of cultivation, and we also incorporate in some of the longer retreat processes that we support going into nature. First, we do a training component where we learn the techniques of Qigong and other spiritual cultivation practices, especially from the Dzogchen tradition. And then we go deep into solitude in nature and completely disconnect from all the reminders from culture through media and normal connections with our loved ones and friends. And we drop into a very profound level of connection with nature, which goes through a process first of making the authentic connection, then going deep into that until we have the experience of communion where we're one with nature in a very deep level, but we're still a separate being at the same time. Then we go deep into the experience of communion and establish an experience of unity with a different being of nature, like a tree or a stone or the water element and so on. And then we drop into that experience of communion of integration and harmony with a number of different elements within the natural mandala of what surrounds us in that very special place in nature. And so we come out of that with having a tremendous experience of being unified with our environment. And at that point, we begin to follow the entire experience of going deep into the connectivity with outer nature. We follow it through into the inner nature aspect, which perceives all of this and experiences all of this. And then we follow that, both of those outer and inner nature aspects, back into the true nature aspect, which is where you begin to reveal the natural connectivity to Tao or to the source level of our being. And at that point, the whole process supports a very profound level of spiritual opening, which is based on, again, achieving a level of integration, harmony, and balance. So it's, you might say the healing process for us happens naturally and spontaneously as a part of coming back into balance with the rest of life externally, coming back into balance with our inner integrity as an organism, and coming back to a recognition of the true source nature, which is the fundamental fountainhead of being.
Very well said, Dr. John Milton. This is an unexpected and profoundly respectable demonstration of depth of your connection, both with your inner nature, first of all, and the true nature of things. I'm speechless a little bit, but at the same time also highly appreciative of how well you express your deep understanding of things. So being creatures of nature, but forgetting how to be natural, obviously causes us all kinds of disease, dysfunction, or simply suffering. And returning to nature and being more in alignment with the flow of things, obviously, is what the doctor ordered. So we're learning how to do that. And at the same time, some of us may need some help. So obviously, you're providing that help, and I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. We were hopeful that the Wave Nature as a spiritual community can provide some tools for how modern urban industrial technological hominids can come back into the natural balance that most indigenous peoples naturally have.
Absolutely. Well, that was really, really profound and clear expression of how to connect with inner nature. Just remember, be more in nature, first of all. If you're living in an artificial environment, well, speaking of being natural is hollow. And so what we do is we learn how to become more natural, first of all, by just simply immersing ourselves in the world.
Yeah, going there. Absolutely. And there's a natural linkage between the outer nature aspect, the inner nature aspect, and the true nature aspect. Exactly. So nature really represents all three in unity and harmony.
Well, that's a beautiful thing that in the English language, nature plays the role of all of these in using one and the same word. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to invite other presenters to speak up. For example, Dr. Nadia Hall, would you unmute yourself and perhaps take your turn? I would love to hear what you have to say.
First time on this computer here.
Oh, well, welcome to the computer.
As with Dr. Sandra, just deep respect and gratitude for all the giants that spoke before and came before. You know, we wouldn't be here without Dr. Chow. Dr. Shealy was my first holistic conference like decades ago. Yeah. And when I'm in trouble, I go see Dr. Sandra and sit in her system. And I'd love to go in nature with you, John, and love to go to wherever in Malaysia. And Dr. Melinda, it's just a great honor to be here. So thank you. So everything's been so beautifully said. The only thing I would disagree with is that place with Dr. Melinda, you said, listen to your doctor. I am an MD, and so is Dr. Shealy. Dr. Sandra is a doctor too, and you know, MDs don't always say what's good for the patient. Yeah, I mean, we were the Flexner Report way back in 1968. You know, the pharmaceutical industry like bought the medical education system. And so my work is helping not to even call them patients, but call the people come to me to help them like learn to trust their body and get their own answers. If their body says, no, do not get the surgery or take the chemo or eat the poison that's gonna destroy your immune system. And yes. So, and lines with what Dr. Chow said, you know, we've got to educate the practitioners. And that's one of my you know, Hawaii would say our kuleanas, you know, how do we get the practitioners to wake up so they can tell the patients the things they really need to hear? And then in terms of my message, you know, Dr. Sandra said so beautifully, like aloha, like I start every session with how do we help people breathe in, into their hearts, all the way down to their bellies, get in their bodies and breathe in the aloha. And that aloha, I think the HMA, I mean, like every system, love is the greatest healer. And right now, the real crime is too strong a word, but the real heartbreak of COVID is it's taken people apart. And the studies show, like the Blue Zone studies, longevity studies, that the most important factor in healing is connectivity. Now, beyond age, beyond wealth, beyond pre-existing conditions, beyond like whatever treatments they're getting, connectivity is where people like lived the longest and got well. And I was going to say, Lama, you said what you said really beautifully, but you also have a wife. You have someone just totally loves you, takes care of you, and that's so. How right now during COVID, during this next wave, can we help people connect in a way that they feel really that touches here? Those moments with you, Dr. Shealy, right before everyone came on, were so precious. I could just feel your love in my heart. I could just cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And in the work I do, that's what's the most important. It's the most important. Yes, everything everyone else said, do what yes, 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 yes. And, how do we make it safe with the whole breakdown and everything and the social distancing and for people to feel their hearts again, to connect deeper. I work with Dr. Kevin in cancer for the University of Maryland Medical School. We do a self-healing cancer retreat. And there are studies that show that I think 60% of the cancer has been documented to directly stem from unforgiveness. And right now, with all that's happening, there are many people who aren't forgiving themselves. All those outside measurements of how we measure our success or measure this, measure that are gone. And people, I have people who are like online, they look really, really successful and they have a huge following and they blah, 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 blah. They have, God, one woman, hundreds of thousands. I get private messages saying, I'm really scared. Let's go down the thing, cancer, relationships, money. And so how can we right now, not put any judgments on people, but see people way deep, what their heart's really asking for. Just keep loving people no matter what. And practically speaking, there's one practical thing I will maybe post it on Facebook. Dr. Kevin, it isn't really publicized yet. Dr. Kevin was in China with the last two pandemics. And I trust people I know, who knows there's so much that's out there now that the people I know, I trust. And one thing that's really simple that isn't really out there is sniffing garlic. Not how much you eat, but you actually smush it and I've never done like stuff you're not supposed to do, but you sniff garlic and you sniff it really, really deeply. And 300 out of 300 people in Wuhan, China, who were tested positive and were sick, but there were no hospital beds for them. Somebody there, they do Qigong, and they went, let's have them sniff garlic. And sniffing the garlic, the allium apparently breaks down the viral wall, and 300 out of 300 got well with just that very simple, everyone has garlic. So there are a whole bunch of simple things you can do, but mainly, let's do our best to keep loving each other. And even loving, even the people, even the 300 you talk about, Norm, they need love. That's why they're doing that stuff. And no, wait, what else do we do? And there's also, what do I also do? I trained under a guy named Dr. Yu, who did miracles, huge miracles, like cancer and paralysis, just huge. And he does like a rewiring that works deeper. And I almost became a surgeon, but then I had kids and got married, all that kind of thing. So part of me is a little impatient. I want the results fast. So his rewiring, the pain goes away like immediately. People who have like got over pancreatic cancer gets well. So we do that long distance, and we do it. I mean, God does it, but we know we can help people figure out like which element is off and what to do for it. And so it doesn't cost very much. One of my things is how do we, with all that's going on with the people who can't afford anything now, how can we give them what they need in as simple and effective and as natural and low cost a way as possible. And it's really fun having someone from South Africa or Australia or Europe like call and their pain is gone and they're better. So yay. So Lama, thank you so much for bringing us together. Thank you so much for this group, and with deep gratitude, aloha. And sometimes it's aloha, 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 aloha. Thank you.
Aloha, mahalo. It's not really me, it's Dr. Chow who is behind all the workings of this Congress. I'm just the mechanism that's making it all work. And so this is definitely a wonderful message that love is important, that natural cures like garlic sometimes are so available at the fingertips, and we just simply overlook them or go for expensive or maybe sometimes unavailable options. It's amazing how we can be healthy if we just pay attention to what really matters. Our loved ones, ourselves, how we connect with nature. Things are simpler than we often think. And one of the panelists here is Dr. Brian Daly, who I would love to ask to speak up a bit on your perspective. You kind of in a unique situation, being a surgeon and a medical doctor who have been doing surgeries for decades, and at the same time also an energy arts practitioner with many decades of experience too.
Well, hello, Lama, and hey, Norm, and give my best to Sergey. Yeah, I've always felt very comfortable walking in both worlds. Sorry, the picture's not showing. I'm smiling and radiating. It's computer snafu kept me off for a bit. But here in New York, the first time COVID came through, things were very busy, but we kept up with it. And unfortunately, my video's not working. But we got through it. There were a few healthcare providers got ill, but nobody died. And this second round is totally different. We've got 40% of staff out. Everybody is working to cover everybody. We've had multiple deaths, including health staff. And I, on the other hand, have been doing well. One of the things I personally have been using, Melinda's probably already talked about the COVID study we did earlier. And you're right, Norm, copper is really an important supplement for this, as well as others. But the Beech Tree Labs, based in Dellenson, New York, developed 20 years ago, actually 25 years ago. They work on a quantum aspect, but they use various different components for various different illnesses. And for viruses, they've been actually using TML, thimerosal, which used to be used as a preservative in vaccines. So everyone's up, oh my gosh, not thimerosal. But it's 1/250th of the dose in vaccines, which was already low. And it turns out it has some beneficial effects. And it actually is very effective against a wide range of coronaviruses, COVID, SARS, Ebola. Actually, in an Ebola study we did just a year ago in Africa, the hospital mortality was about 40 to 50%. And they had all the artificial supports, IV fluids and isolation and yada, yada. And we had 20 people in the bush, one of whom died in 1 hour into the study. but the other 19 all improved in 2 to 4 days with nothing other than the sublingual drops. And we've been finding it highly effective. We're about to start a phase 2 trial. And there's others for cancer and whatnot, but it's as a promising aspect, a lot of traditional therapies. First, the adverse effects are less than or equal to placebo, so they're generally very safe. And we've treated a wide variety of issues. Herpes type 1 cold sores resolve usually in 2 days. More severe if you have disseminated herpes zoster, chickenpox head to toe. I actually had an AIDS patient back around late 80s, 88 or so, with when your helper cells get below 400, you start getting immune problems like thrush and other things. His was 0.0, no helper cells, and he broke out head to toe with herpes zoster. And we used 3 days of acyclovir IV, no improvement on a compassionate use basis. We used the sublingual drops. All the lesions dried in 5 days. He went home. And we've got multiple cases now. And I also find energy therapies really fantastic. And I don't think the method you use is specific. Qigong is wonderful. Reiki is wonderful. I think the intent and thought with it is really a powerful healer. And, you know, our ICUs are all full. Our hospital beds are all full. And I actually, you know, they require PPE in the hospital. And I do comply, but I used to use my hands 2 or 3 inches above them. And I just realized, you know, 2 sets of gloves, it's so nurturing and wonderful to place the hands on the person. And they feel that warmth coming from you, whichever modality you're using. And it's so soothing. And they seem to do a lot better in terms of comfort, pain relief, earlier transfers to lower care units. When I'm actually in the units, I'm taking the TML drops prophylactically. It's 1 sublingual drop 4 times a day, but I normally don't take it outside of there. And so far I've done very well, except for one time driving into work. I developed sudden loss of smell, suddenly myalgias and arthralgias and, you know, muscle aches and pains, and realized possibly I had COVID and started the drops immediately because I carried them on my person at 2, and I called to say I wouldn't be into work. But at 2 hours, I felt like very under the weather, and at 4 hours, totally normal. Interestingly, I'm being tested for antibodies, you know, IgG, IgM, and also PCR twice a week, and they were negative. And it turns out in others we've used, if you start immediately with symptom onset, very often they don't develop antibodies because it's supposed to inhibit uptake and replication in the cell. For those that start it later, several days, or wait for confirmatory testing, they may have antibodies, but they all tend to resolve symptom-wise. So I'm a big believer in energy therapies for augmenting it. But this is another new avenue we're using that, you know, along with Melinda was brilliant, and Caitlin, to think about the use of copper and photonic patches to amplify that. So I'll move on to let others speak, unless they have questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Brian Daly, for talking to us about your experience, because your experience obviously is being in the trenches and working with people directly affected by this pandemic. Some of us may be a little smug, feeling like, well, it's not really happening here, so I don't really deal with it directly. Well, you cannot afford that because you are dealing with it every day. And that's something that I want to thank you for and express my appreciation of your work.
Sure.
And the fact that you also combine that with some natural healing practices, that's just excellent. Dr. Chow?
I'd like to have a couple of minutes here, if I may. In following up with Brian's report, I want to praise you, Brian, because Brian had retired and he went back into the ranks of working with COVID. I think that deserves a big hand for Brian, like moving into the trenches. So, Brian, thank you. And I had talked to Brian just a little bit briefly that I have other plans that within a month or so that we will call together a team dealing with COVID certification and talking about innovative processes, and probably have a summit on COVID-19 and all the innovative programs. For example, Linda talked about Wuhan in China. That is a fantastic model. I follow that very closely. They have a lot of documentation, but because of the political element here, that they call it the Chinese virus, and so it has implications. They've had many violent attacks on Chinese throughout the world after that comment. And so therefore, we're planning to work with existing COVID clinics, maybe in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Massachusetts, the hotspots in Florida, and we'll go in with the program that is existing and incorporate after research onto what Wuhan results were. And it was totally terrific. I don't know how many of you people know about it, but at first Western medicine didn't work. So he called in thousands of doctors, Chinese doctors, 3,000 throughout the country, and with a concentration in Wuhan. And within 2 months, it cleared, and China opened up in 2 months' time. So, but that's been ignored and that's been covered up because of the whole political element. So I am interested, not just interested, I am. We are working with some people, and I welcome all you people, and we're going to explore all avenues. We're not going to say we accept them, but we need to explore, for example, intravenous of high dose, mega dose of vitamin C has been very accepted, but have you heard anything about it? No, it's been covered up. And many other things that you folks are talking about here, we need to bring it to the fore. So this is the two things that I would like you people to know we're doing, that we're going to have a summit on COVID and the possibilities of innovative approaches. We're not saying we're against vaccines, but only 50% of the people said they will try vaccine. And I think, as who said, we don't know, Sandra, Rose, we don't know what the outcome is. We don't know what the side effects are because it's been a rush job. And that's good to a point. So we're going to have the program and then also clinical implication. And so we've been talking to funders who may be interested in this whole area. And so please, any of you who's interested, please contact us, okay? This will be very important in this next year, not wait until another year, another 200,000 people dying. People are dying unnecessarily. How many agree with that? Yeah.
Absolutely certain.
The other thing is that Qigong is the world's oldest oxygen therapy. Qigong. And that's what they need. They build up the respiration, the lung from breath, but not just breathing like this, really concentrating on the breath and really concentrating on making that diaphragm strong and moving. So it massages all the organs when you move the diaphragm. And in China, they use Qigong, they use massage, they use acupressure, and they use acupuncture and definitely herbs. And we know the best herbal people, John Chen. I was hoping he could come, but unfortunately he said he couldn't at this point. But he will be involved in some of the top people in the whole Chinese medicine field. So I'm very excited, and I hope you are excited about the idea and to incorporate your ideas in with us, okay? So that's the two things. The conference specialized on COVID, innovations, and then the actual clinical practices. So we're talking with different major clinics that are dealing with COVID right now, and including Brian, right, Brian? So anyway,
Sure.
thank you for the extra minutes. Thank you. And
Just an interesting thought on the vaccines. I'm not eager to get it, but it's required in my work. And I was actually scheduled at 5 o'clock to get the Moderna vaccine today. Got moved to Wednesday. And it's not, quote, required because you can refuse. You just can't work. You can't go into the hospital.
yeah, right.
And
Well,
so
this is
it's sort of catchy. So I agreed to get them, and I just receive it in the highest energy possible and realize that it's going to bring great benefits, and then send my energy to make sure that to eliminate the negative. I'm on what's called a REACTS team. We respond worldwide on biological, radiological, and chemical disasters. So most of us have not had smallpox vaccine in the last 20, 30 years. I just had mine redone 2 years ago because there's 2 repositories where it still exists, just in case there's an issue. So on the one hand, you can be reluctant to take them. On the other hand, it's nice to not have polio and other things. And I'll be quiet.
Well, we're afraid of what will come down the road, that it will be mandatory. And then you will be monitored as to whether you have or not. Just like with children who was prescribed the drug for active children, and they all had to be on that drug. Otherwise, they would go to jail. The parents would go to jail. This was actually a law in Illinois and some other states. So I'm going to say something that maybe many of you disagree with, but our lifestyle led us to this pandemic. So therefore, we cannot go back to the norm, what we feel the norm. We've been, pardon my English, pardon my French, bastardizing the earth. Mother Earth, we've been raping the Mother Earth, and we have not been really diligent about eating well and environment. And so therefore, we cannot go back to the old normal ways. We need to create a new pathway, and I call it a quantum life path, because quantum is embracing everything and mobilizing, and etc. And you can call it anything you want. But anyway, so we have to think, not go to the old way, but create a new way of life and thought and process. And it still comes back down to the immune system, because what CDC prescribed, washing and hand and mask, that's all very important, but everything is placed on the external, and then vaccine is also externally in. So we have to awaken the internal aspect of all of us at whatever age, at whatever financial standard, or whatever ethnic group, and etc. So thank you. I want you to know that that's some exciting activities that are coming up, and would like all of you to be involved as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chow. I just wanted to bring up something that I just received information about, and that is in the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister just announced the 3rd lockdown that is going to be in effect from tonight till February, middle of February, actually. So it's definitely an interesting times that we live in. the times of challenges and also perhaps great opportunities. I totally agree with Dr. Chow. Going back to the business as usual is not going to be the new normal, should not become a new normal again. It actually is the dysfunctional way of living that causes the way that we experience life. And so if we want to experience life as a higher quality of living, well, we need to live differently. So thank you so much, Dr. Chow, for bringing that up. It's really important. And if anyone among our practitioners would like to speak up, I see James McRitchie is joining us from UK. I was just talking about your country. What can you say about what's happening in your neck of the woods, on the other side of the pond, so to speak?
They've just announced about an hour ago, I haven't actually read it all yet, but they've gone into a higher level of lockdown. They've got it organized into what they call tiers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they've gone up, I think, to tier 4 as of just now, because there's a new variant that's running riot, and the hospitals are at actual full brim, and so they're trying to just get ahead of this, stop the hospitals, just getting overrun. There's a lady here called Annette Todd, and she's in England, and she's very informed. She's a nurse. So, Annette, would you like to say anything that you know what's going on? Because you've been following it very closely, haven't you?
Trying to.
Yeah, you're on. Just the mic is off.
Your mic's off. Unmute.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Jim, I haven't been a nurse for decades.
I didn't say anything about you being a nurse. I just said you're very informed.
But I can tell you, yes, we're going from midnight, we're going into level 5, which is a similar type of lockdown to what we had in March. So the schools and colleges will be closed, and people will be asked to stay at home apart from essential shopping and visits to the doctors or other essential visits. And as you say, it's because the hospitals now are overwhelmed, and also they have a high percentage of sickness amongst the staff. So the staff are finding it extremely difficult to cope with the high numbers.
I saw there was 40% of the staff have been hit.
40%, yeah. So they're going.
The doctors, and
and they're going to be stopping, if they haven't already, some of the other cancer treatments and other operations because they can't cope. So very difficult.
Sorry to hear that difficulty, Annette. It's obviously a challenging situation. And also, there are probably some ways to thrive despite the challenges that we experience these times. What is thriving? Well, thriving is the ability to basically get back on your feet soon after you get knocked off, or maybe not even get knocked off, just have your balance challenged without losing balance entirely. So that's the ability to then improve the quality of our lives despite the challenges. It's often referred to as resilience. Resilience is not exactly the same thing as thriving, but it's the prerequisite of thriving, or prerequisite for thriving. And one of the folks here who knows how to thrive in all kinds of situations is our old friend Gary Kleiman. Gary, I know that you have a few words to say. Perhaps you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a few words to say. The CDC released the death rate today of, it's exactly the same as last year, including all the fake COVID deaths that they stick on the list, from heart disease, kidney failure, getting stabbed, falling off a motorcycle, suicide. It's all on the COVID list. We're being scammed. Don't believe it. Period. I know there's two ways of looking at this, and I got mine. I don't wear a mask. Anybody wants me to wear a mask, they're going to get a fight. First of all, it's just communist propaganda. It just means you're a sheep. Now, what do I do when I treat weird or really bad diseases? I put my hands on people. I'm sitting on the same table that I treated a girl 2 years ago. She came in from a dating site. She brought me her mother. I treated her 85-year-old mother, and then she said, "How about me?" And I said, "Okay." Well, I got rid of her migraines in 2 minutes. I ran my Jing through her from one hand to the other, going through her head. Her headaches disappeared forever. And then she said, "Oh, I have another problem. I have this weird liver disease. I never heard of it. Nobody ever heard of it. Her doctor barely heard of it." So I put my hands on her and I ran my juice through her. She came back. She called me up and she said, "I got to talk to you." She came back 2 weeks later and she said, "My numbers are normal." I didn't do anything. I didn't even know what I was treating. I just knew if I run my juice through somebody, things change. All my Tai Chi students say, "Just put your hands on somebody. Everything changes." Well, yeah, I know. It's been that way since the 70s. So I agree with the supplements. Dr. Shealy, I was supposed to do a talk show with you in 1985, October, and I got busted for practicing medicine without a license. It went down the tubes. I've been treating thousands and thousands of people. They fly to see me. They come in, they get to the airport, they come here to get treated. They go back to the airport and they go home. I don't treat over and over and over and over again. When I work in a chiropractor's office, they think I'm nuts. Why don't you figure out a way of making them come back? No. If you give them your best shot, I got nothing after that. I charge $250 a patient. I don't care if I see them for 4 minutes or 2 hours. I raised my price about 25 years ago. It used to bother me. $100 a consultation, and they'd stay with me like forever. How do I get this person out of here? Well, wait a minute. I think my tooth has been hurt. No, I quit doing that. $250 a pop. I don't care. They come in, they can't walk. Now, if they had a stroke, obviously that takes more. But I torture my patients, and they get better right in front of me, in front of their family. I got hired 1996. One of my best friends, the best chiropractor I've ever met in my life. We've been friends since '80. His wife calls me up and says, "Gary, we need your help. Gayleen had an aneurysm, and she might not make it through the night." This is a freaky story. So I said, "Okay." I said, "How did you know I have this skill?" And she said, "Well, out of all Gary's friends, he's the best chiro I ever met. We've been teaching each other since '80. It would be you." I said, "Okay." So I projected to her to get through the night, survive the aneurysm, don't die. And 3 months later, they sent me a ticket to go to Salt Lake City to treat her. So I get there, I get to her house, and they're all Mormons, so they all got blonde hair and blue eyes. It's like going into a Nazi reproduction center. So they all got, each 6 kids has 6 kids. Whoa. So it was like I was in a den of bunnies or something. They all look alike. Anyway, so I walked up. She's sitting in a wheelchair. She's kind of crooked. She can't see in one eye. Her left side's stroked. I touch her arm and she sits up and looks me right in the face and says, "That was you, wasn't it?" If you don't get goosebumps over that, you're not even alive. So since then and before that, people hire me for distance stuff. You know, I just had a response from the convention, from the Congress yesterday. Can I do emotional liposuction at a distance? No. You need to be on my table. I need to plug in and suck all that stuff out. Here's my chart. Abandonment, anger, rage, bitterness, fear, guilt, anguish, sorrow, and fear. And as I said yesterday, I haven't seen fear in 8 years. Everybody thinks they're walking around with fear. It's not fear. It's abandonment. It's terrible. It's disappointment. So there's 4 emotions that everybody has: anger, rage, bitterness, and abandonment. So I touch it. If you don't have it and I touch it, it doesn't hurt. If you have it and I touch it, it feels like you're being burned with a blowtorch. So I suck it out. No, most of my emotional liposuction treatments now take between 4 and 7 minutes. And it's over. I don't have to listen to their story. They don't have to tell me like all their therapists they've been working with their abusive husband. No, I don't need any of that. And people change. They change right in front of me. And, you know, I got big balls. I've been doing this since 1987. It was a very strange thing. I came back from doing a seminar in Portland, I told yesterday. And I had all commodity trader clients, and I told them this freaky thing that happened in my workshop, and they go, "Cool, do it to me." And basically, I've been doing it ever since. Yes, I do acupuncture, but my needles only stay in for 2 or 3 minutes. I do 5-element acupuncture. In fact, somebody was talking about 5-element before. I made my latest DVD program is called 5-element Constitutional Neigong. Now you can't learn it first. You got to go through Qigong, tidal wave Qigong first, and then you got to go through Mind Light Neigong first. I thought when I created my 5-element Neigong that it was going to be a startup program because I made it to be a startup program. But I've got 13 guys practicing it, and all of them have come through first learning my Qigong, then learning my Neigong, and then coming up with the 5-element Neigong, which I had to create a sitting program because in February 2016, the front wheel came off my 87 Peugeot going 70 miles an hour. So I couldn't walk. So I added a sitting practice to the 5-element, and it turns out it's perfect. And, you know, I'm very famous for all this stuff. I've been doing it since it was unpopular. And as I said yesterday, I got my Jing in 1978. And as soon as I started touching people, things started to happen. The first one was this little kid, a 4-year-old kid was brought in to see me from Michigan to Chicago. All his joints were exploding. They gave him some kind of shot or something, and he had a reaction. So with his aunt and his mother and my Tai Chi student, who was pretty young at the time, I put my hand on him, and he went, it just shrunk, like right in front of us. I never saw that before. That's using Jing. It's not about balancing the meridian. I'm a 5-element acupuncturist, and my acupuncture teacher was great, but my acupuncture teacher was my first Qigong student. And my second Qigong student was my Taekwondo master. So I've been doing this since, now I didn't even have a format until 83. I learned Qigong in 1978 after the Tai Chi school closed. I stayed with my teacher in his living room. So I wrote the Neigong Bible. This is my second book. This book has all the practices from the entire Tai Chi system, which I am the inheritor. I've been a Tai Chi master since God knows when, 80, 83? Anyway, all the practices from the whole system are in this book. This book I sold for $1,000.
Gary, I'm going to interrupt you because you're kind of repeating yourself. You already shared that with us yesterday. So thank you for telling us, but we've got to actually move on to something that is pertinent to the natural healing of COVID. And I believe that Dr. Effie Chow had something to say, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Chow, you seem like you were saying something.
Yeah, I would like to hear from some of the others that haven't spoken. And maybe we could limit it to maybe a couple of minutes, and be salient about it, because I'd love to hear. There's a lot of faces here that I haven't heard from. And I think, yes, I have a comment that this is the time that you all are having success stories like Gary. Gary should be having these success stories published. Okay, not just talk about it. Maybe you have, I don't know. But every one of you need to publish your stories, whether it's self-publishing. And if we get enough documentation, then we say this is valid. That's how research is done originally. We didn't have this double blind and triple, everything, and et cetera. But if each one of us collected our stories, published it, and the Congress will be happy to help you with that. But we got to get this done. And I sound desperate. Well, we are in a desperate state. And Gary, you may call this as false news, but there are some realities to this. And even if it's complicated with heart and automobile, motorcycle accident, but it's still partly COVID. Okay, that's okay. We have rights to disagree and agree. And so, because this is open, honest forum, and we say negative things with a smile and with a love in our heart, not against each other. So that is an important thing. See, we talk about this, but we got nothing to prove it. And everybody is afraid to say, except Gary, is saying how fantastic the results are because you're brought up with humility, and we sometimes are too much humility, so that's why we don't progress. And so Gary, he makes up for a lot of us, okay? And that's good, Gary. Okay, but you've got to get it down and make it and publish it, every one of you. So I love you, Gary, but but you need to put everything down. And so how many are going to take this edict and maybe do some more documentation on your cases? I'm sure you could all equal Gary's stories, right? How many can equal Gary's stories? Come on, put up your hands. You have. All of you have, except that you're too modest, and we got to let excessive modesty. You should have modesty, but excessive modesty is destructive as well. In Chinese medicine, everything to a moderation. Is that right? But anything to excess, even loving in excess, is bad. Excessive love turns into hate and jealousy, and etc. So we must be humble, but rightly humble. And we need to documentation of our successes is not being bragging. And remember, you don't heal. It is from God and Buddha or whoever your deity is, whoever you refer. We talk about the greater spirit. So when somebody says, oh, Dr. Chow, you did so marvelous. Yes, I can brush pain away in 3 seconds, 50-year pain in 3 seconds too as well. But you don't dare say this unless you have people who will talk also the same way and say, wow, this person can do it and I can teach somebody else. So are you teaching other people, Gary, or are you keeping the secrets to yourself? So teach the other people whatever you can do. And this is where we're going to gain strength. And this is where we're really going to help humanity by letting ourselves go.
Yes, of course I teach.
So, all right. And who's the others that we haven't heard from?
We haven't heard from Michael Mahork. He has been.
Yes, Michael, you're the remote person.
Yes, hi there. This has been an amazing panel. I've gotten so much out of it, and the love is so amazing coming out of here, and the information has been incredible. Dr. Chow's asked for testimonials on my Qigong Distant Energy Healing Facebook page. I probably have thousands of testimonials on that from doing 10 years of free distant healing sessions. About once a month, I do a free 3-day healing event, and then people will post their results on that. So there's a lot of testimonials on that.
So are you focusing on COVID at all?
Well, no, I have a couple COVID testimonials. I have a lot of infection testimonials. One of the reasons when you start talking about COVID and doing energy healing, for me, I have to be a little bit concerned about what the medical community is going to do. That was like talking about cancer, So that's I'm a little concerned about that, and I really don't have that many testimonials yet on that. So I know just Qigong in general will help build people's energy field so that they can either not have COVID, build their immunity so they won't get COVID, or if they get COVID, it'll help them heal faster from it. But one thing I would like to just talk a little bit more about is what Mai was speaking about. We're going through such an extraordinary time in actually human history, and this COVID is a terrible thing to go through, but we're also getting an infusion of tremendous light and energy that's coming into the system at the same time to help us heal. And so one of the things we have to be really aware of is getting in touch with our emotions, because our emotional.
Michael, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to say goodbye to everybody right now because I have another appointment on right now. So, and what you're saying is really important, Michael. So excuse me, everybody. Thank you so much, and carry on. Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Chow. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, please go on, Michael.
Okay, so so right now, a lot of people are having a lot of emotions come up around with what's going on, and we have to embrace those emotions. We have to feel them and not suppress them. As we know in traditional Chinese medicine, that repressed emotions cause a lot of disease. And now with this extra infusion of energy that's coming in, it's bringing up a lot of things for us to clear, like Mai was talking about. We're clearing ancestral patterns. We're clearing a lot of old emotional patterns, mental patterns. A lot of trauma is coming up. And a lot of people are just having a difficult time, challenging time trying to deal with this. So we just need to be present and in our body and just feel our emotions and not deny them and feel the love. Know that this is that we're actually moving to a higher level of consciousness. I believe all this thing is a unique time in human history, and we're very fortunate to be here, even though it's so difficult and challenging. And all the people that have given us the wonderful hints on how to deal with COVID, that's coming out. And for me, I just see a very positive outcome from all this chaos that's going on now. So I guess so. Once a month, I do a 3-day free healing event that people can go on the Facebook page and they can join that if they want. And that's about all I've got to say right now.
Thank you so much, Michael. Well, your work has influenced the lives of thousands of people. So I really want to express my appreciation of what you do. We can do some research on distant healing. We can do some investigation. I'm sure that it will prove that it works. And most importantly, we also learn how to work on ourselves so we don't rely just on other people to heal us, to fix us. We learn how to heal from within, because that's the most reliable and most effective way to maintain our quality of life. And that's something that I'm sure you also share with people who attend your distant healing events, right?
Yeah. The most important thing is to be able to heal yourself. And practice Qigong. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of people who are so ill that they really can't do much of a practice. So sometimes they need an energy boost. That's what I'm there to help with. But I encourage everyone to practice Qigong to build a strong Qi field. Those are the things that will repel disease, that will repel all these electromagnetic influences we have going on. We also have this tremendous, there's a lot of collective fear out there that we also have to be aware of and not take on. We have to be able to distance ourselves from that, be compassionate for the people that are feeling scared and nervous, send out the love. There were so many people here that gave out a lot of love during their talk. So of course, love is the great healer. And I'm not a healer. I'm just a conduit. I don't even like using the word healer. I think people heal themselves. I mean, I don't consider myself a healer, just a conduit. I say I do healing work, and on occasions I'll use the word healer just to describe what I'm doing. But I'm not the healer. But it's like Effie said, the divine, the Tao, or whatever we want to call a higher power is the healer, and I'm just a conduit. And my guess is a lot of these other people in here that are doing healing work just feel the same way.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Michael. And I see that Maury has raised his hand a little bit ago. Maury, do you want to unmute yourself and say what it is that you wanted to share or ask a question?
Yeah, I think that we as a body of very powerful individuals need to step up to the plate collectively and make a very clear statement of what we can do. I think that, I think there's a lot of us that have similar abilities to just do lots of miracles quickly. And we need to show that to the world. And so what I was thinking is, if working as a group, we figure out somehow to do a study of a entity, whether it be a hospital, a city, a state, a country, whatever level, that we can get some kind of study and do a series of, of remote healings as a group to carry out our objective of study. I think we have a lot of abilities to do preventative, just to blow this thing off the earth. I think we have the abilities to, drop hospital numbers quickly and immensely. I think we have abilities to help people who are stuck with these long-term symptoms after, I can't think of the word offhand, after symptoms. And I think that, if we want to make a statement in the world that, hey, this is a viable method of alternative that can stand up to any other system out there, we have to take this opportunity, volunteer a little of our efforts, and prove it.
Excellent. Well, I definitely agree with you, Maury. It would be a fantastic project for all of us to join hands or put our efforts together. I think it would also be a great opportunity for many energy practitioners to kind of learn how to collaborate with each other. This is not something that many of us are used to. Working for ourselves, by and large, it's kind of a solitary pursuit, and many practitioners who work for themselves are not used to collaborating with others that much. So it's been my the passion and the challenge to engage more practitioners of Qigong and other related energy disciplines to actually collaborate. Obviously, that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years with my congress, my conferences, and participating in this congress. And that's something that I would love to engage our practitioners in collaborating, seeing how we can work together and how we can help everyone to benefit at the same time. So like Dr. Chow said, we're not in competition with each other. We actually are helping each other. And that's something that obviously we can do in the context of our Congress and in daily life. So thank you so much, Maury, for bringing these suggestions. At my conferences and participating in this Congress. And that's something that I would love to engage our practitioners in collaborating. I don't know why Tom's microphone got unmuted.
You're back.
You back, Tom.
I think we should, coming out of this week, have some kind of short-term 30-day plan of, we're going to, have a group of, 5 people, let's say, to organize a study, find the entity we're going to work with, have a doctor or somebody qualified to help us design a study that's appropriate, that, will fit the qualifications of a proper study. And we just have to do it. It's like, right now, before this whole vaccine thing kicks in and they start taking credit, we got a window right now, today, this month, where there's a huge void. And I think that's where our work shines, is where there's voids. I know for me, people always come to me because they can't find any other solutions. They've been to every other practitioner, and then they come to me and they say, wow, why didn't I start here? So it's like, the question is, why aren't we starting here now? And that's what I'd like to address and hear some feedback on. Why aren't we starting here now with a 30-day plan?
Sounds great. Yeah, I totally agree with your suggestion. We can and should start a game plan at this Congress. So we're going to put together a team of people who are starting at least figuring out what kind of plan that might be. You're welcome to participate in it. You have my email address, so let's communicate by email and figure it out. Let's put our heads together. I really appreciate the suggestion, Mari, and I want to thank everyone for participating in our panel today. It's been an amazing discussion. We had a lot of important and very helpful suggestions, sharing some wonderful stories, and also just want to thank you for being in our Congress. I invite you to continue exploring the presentations that are going to come on next really soon. I believe the next one actually is going to be Reverend Dr. Wei-Ching Lee. So, or maybe, no, maybe not. Maybe she is at 3 o'clock. So Dr. John Milton is actually coming up next. And then Dr. Wei-Ching Lee following him. And then Michael Mahoric. And then we're going to hear from Bill Douglas, the founder of World Tai Chi and Qigong Day, and also Dr. Terry Shintani from Hawaii, who is the co-chair of our Congress. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow at our next panel discussion.
So one last piece.
Yes, Marcia.
On behalf of Dr. Chow, who has left the panel, everybody should unmute themselves and give
Hug yourself. Yes.
big hugs
And
offer the I love you. Big hugs and I love you.
I love you too. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.